It is not Egyptology because the name of the civilization was not Egypt. It's a Greek word, Egyptos. It comes from a contraction that they Hegepetos. Hegepetos comes from the term, ancient Commission term, het kapita. And here he is pointing to it at Memphis. When we go there, we'll see it in the Stele of Apis, 200 BC. The Greeks themselves wrote this. Het is place, ka, I could give you a 3-hour lecture on ka. Many, many people have written books on it, and many, many people have got it absolutely wrong. It is the astral body. When Khnum, the sacred potter, creates us, he creates two. The ka, the physical body, and the ka, which is the... Hakim actually defined it as physical projection of the soul. Okay? Ptah, another thing we could go on forever, but it's a netter. So we just say for now a creator God, or a principle. So what is this saying? It is saying this is the place where Ptah manifested. That's all. And that was only Memphis, Muhammad's hometown, which in the ancient term was Menefer, which can be translated as the generation of harmony or the harmony of fertility. Both are correct. So, we say it's only one site. What was the country? Kemet. Only written, of course, as we know, glyphs are only written in consonants. The vowels are hidden, like in Hebrew. Exactly the same. But I spell it K-H-E-M-I-T. No, it's just me. You can spell it K-E-M-I-T, K-E-M-E-T. It's okay. It's the pronunciation that Hakim said was so much more important. The sound, not the spelling. So, it meant the Black Land. And there it is, folks. We'll see it in the fields, rarely. When Satyen Raja asked Hakim in 2008, where does Kemet come from? Oh, it is written. And more than that, it was passed down orally. So that's it. And this place signed ahead. Always means place. Village, town, city. So, of course, one of the ancient Arabic terms for Egypt is alchemy. That's where the word alchemy comes from. What alchemy was the arts and sciences of ancient Kemet. So, we say we don't teach Egyptology. Of course, we teach chematology. And that's what it is. But Egyptology is our foundation. So, the basic teachings he gave us. So, to set up a principle, we have a foundation. And the foundations of chematology are the 5 stages of the sun. The movement the sun makes daily across the sky also represents stages in our consciousness development and stages in prehistory. So, let's do the 5 stages quickly. Cheper, scarab beetle, known as the driller. Why? We'll explain. It represents the dawn, the beginning of consciousness coming up. Why it's called the driller? The scarab beetle, which is a hermaphrodite, both male and female. It lays its eggs. It rolls up a ball of dung, usually camel dung these days, whatever it was in those days, drills in it, puts the egg in it, and rolls the ball in front of it. So that when the young one is born, it immediately has a food supply. What's waste for one is food for another. That's the law of nature. So, they saw it as the driller. But more important, in pushing the little ball of dung in front of it, they saw it like raising the ball of sun in the morning, at dawn. So it's a symbol of dawn, the first phase. Second is Ra. Well, we say, oh, isn't Ra the sun god? We say, no, thanks for playing. No, Ra is only 1/5 of this understanding. Ra is the sun at noon, called the stubborn. To the ancient Cometians was not a donkey, but the ram that was a stubborn animal. So the first image of Ra was the ram. Later, it's usurped. But I can't get into that. It's the second lecture. But we'll talk about it on the boat. I can actually do a modified from light into darkness on the boat. So the ram stubborn, that's the sun at noon, the heat of the sun at noon. Also Sekhmet represents the same thing, the heat of the sun at noon. Third stage, pronounced Un. It is what was Heliopolis, was the city of Un. Un is depicted by a mature man with a staff. Again, this is patriarchal. A mature man with a staff means the wise. It means at this stage of development, we're developing an understanding. Again, Ra represents adolescent consciousness. That's why it's stubborn. Teenagers. Before Adam, we've all been one. They think we know everything. So that's stubborn. So the mature man is the wise. Achieved now, he's gone into some maturity in life, has developed some wisdom, and it's the sun in early afternoon. Now, we come to my favorite time, Aten, or Itten. Depicted as an old man originally on a staff, hunched over. Later depicted as a sun with 3 rays in the Ankh. But originally, it was an old man hunched over. It represents the sun in the full flowering of day. In the 8th afternoon, when it's the most beautiful time, going to twilight. And it represents the time of full flowering of consciousness. So we're saying there was a time when just about everyone was enlightened. Not just Jesus, not just Buddha, not just Muhammad. Everybody had a degree of enlightenment. And this is when the pyramids were built. Last is Amen, or Imen. No image originally. No image. Represents the hidden. Night, darkness, separation, polarity. No image. I'm probably the only Jew in the house. What is that, the future of Judaism? No image of God. Obviously borrowed directly. So now we have another 5. 5 is a key number. Certain numbers appear. Somebody mentioned 42. I can go on about 42. 42 judges of Osiris. 42 of the negative confession. 42 steps would lead up to the Holy of Holies. On and on and on. What does 42 represent? The tribes of the Sesh. Who were the Sesh? The people. The Cometians did not call themselves man, woman, black, white, Christian, Jew, Muslim. The Sesh were all the people. Children were just little Sesh. No differentiation. So, the idea was we're all moving together. So number 5 also appears a lot. 5. Anybody know how that approaches in this country? What is 5 in this country? What happens 5 times a day here? The prayer. It's based on the 5 stages of the sun. Obviously gotten wrong because they wake up 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no stage of the sun. It should be dawn. First should be dawn, then noon, early afternoon, late afternoon, and evening. And originally in Judaism, they prayed 5 times a day. Now they only pray 3 times a day. In Judaism, the highest holy day of the year is known as Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. They pray 5 times a day. So we have the 5 houses, the second foundation teaching. We get the cycles, 5 stages of the sun, now the 5 houses. Per is house. First is per-ah, known as the high house. It's the origin of the word phadeo in Greek. And it was the woman's house. And there's the glyph at Dindara, and unfortunately you guys can't see it anymore because it's on a roof which is off limits because somebody fell off in 2004. So, we now stop and we say, in opposition to Egyptology, without insulting any of our colleagues, there never were any male pharaohs. No such thing. There never were any male pharaohs. So what you're looking at, what Egyptology is, according to Hakim and I, is Greco-Roman mythology. The Greeks came in as a patriarchal culture. All they see was fathers and sons. All they see is kings. The guy on the wall, he must be the king. And the other guy following him must be his son. There's your dynasties, there's Manetho, there's Herodotus, there's all of that. Interpreting this matriarchal culture from a patriarchal point of view. This was a matriarchy. The woman is the most important thing. I wish I could be with you guys in the museum. There's a million examples, but you'll see it. I'll show it to you everywhere we go. The woman was the most important thing in this culture, not the man. It's totally opposite the way we thought today, because Judaism and Greeks bring in patriarchy. So, the per-ah was the woman. Nefertiti was per-ah, not Akhenaten. Nefertari was per-ah, not Ramses II. Second, we have what's called the per-ka. We talked about the ka being the physical projection of the spirit. Personality, etheric or astral body. The per-ka is where the ka and the chat, you put a T ending to make it the body. Remember he said neder-chat, which Hakim translated as organs of the God. Or the body. Chat is the body. When you put a T on the ka, it becomes the physical. So that's where you put the body. That is the tomb. Per-ka is the tomb. Per-ba, Yosef is mentioned, ba is spirit or soul. We prefer spirit to soul. That's the second book. But per-ah is the house of the soul. That's the temple. What do you do in the temple? You go to raise consciousness by praying, by chanting. What we did in the temple, what we did in the pyramid today was we made in the temple. We have turned, well, I have to get to the next one to go back, but we have turned pyramids into temples. Suppose we go in there, we chant, we meditate, and we raise our consciousness. That's what they did. And there's the per-neter, and there's the per-ba. We'll show them on the walls when we see them. Now, this is great. In 1999, Hakim had only given me 4. So I have this on video, you all can see this. We're out at Dashur, where we were today. We're sitting down, and Hakim wants to go over the 5 pers with me. He goes, okay, per-ka, per-ba, per per netter, and he goes, I said, Stephen, I said, Papa, you never told me. Maybe it's the hidden one. And he laughed. We found it on that trip at Edfu. The per word. The house of the wise men. In commission, word was great. Word was great. So a master or a great teacher would call the word. I always called Hakim my word. So, that's the house of the wise men. This was a section of the temple, and we could see this at Edfu, but we're not going to Edfu. But there's other places that show that there were certain sections of the Purba, the temple, that were the teaching area. Where the esoteric wisdom, the glyphs there, the special glyphs, hidden away from only but the high priests, the high initiates. So that's the, that's the first university. That's where it began, in the temples of Egypt. Last is the most important misunderstanding, per netre. Netre, Papa would say. House of the pyramid. Now, we got this wrong originally, and people came down on my case, because Hakim would say nature is the Greek word. So per netre came nature. And somebody, of course, Greek speakers would say to me, no, physis is nature in Greek, where we get physical, physics. Okay. But the Greeks came in and pronounced netter, nature. In fact, Budge wrote it that way, nature. The Latins, Romans coming in behind them, saw that nature, natura, nature. That's where nature comes from. So it is the house of nature, aspect of creation, divine principle sense is what netter means. Netter does not mean God in Commissions. It is a divine principle. Hakim blessed us with his teaching that we are innately born with 360 senses. Under 180 we label feminine, 180 we label masculine, always polarity. These are your netters. They were not deity to the Commissions. They were an aspect of the whole, a principle of creation. The greatest person who first elucidated this was the hero of John Anthony West, Arishwala de Lubitsch.